Get your butts back on the field.
Huh?
One.
Unbelievable.
Anyways, so I was looking through what should be covering for a new episode of Jetpack Retro. No joke, I've been all over the place with doing a classic episode of old commercials or doing another top 7, but not sure since we already did one. And then I decided, you know what, yeah, there is a retrospective that we are literally only one video away from finishing, and then we are done with it. And that is my retrospective on Diary of a Wimpy Kid. We have one video left, which is the top 7 best Diary of a Wimpy Kid books. We did the worst, we did the films, we did the spin-offs. Now it is time for the best. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Alright, so number 7 on the list is The Third Wheel. Now, let me just tell you something. When I was putting this top 7 list together, it was hard. I genuinely, throughout the books, first had a struggling time trying to figure out which are even the top 7 best. Then I struggled even further trying to rank them. Almost each and every one of these books, I went, yeah, but they all have something in them that's just so great. They all have their own tone, their own thing. So this was hard, but managed to pull it off. Now, why The Third Wheel gets number 7? Fun story. When I was younger, I actually hated The Third Wheel when it first came out and thought it was a bad book. But then I just read it over multiple times and it slowly started to grow on me. So, yeah. After thinking so many times, this one does get the number 7 spot. The reason why it's so low is because it's not that it's a bad book. It actually is a really fun book that delves into relationships, how hard they are to do when you're in this state of your life, trying to deal with school relationships and things like that, and dealing with proms and dances your school have that become such a big thing and take up so much time, and the struggles of how in the end you could end up being a third wheel, like the book says. But still really fun. There is this whole big unnecessary chapter in the beginning where he just goes in depth on his entire life from the womb out as a baby, which I thought was a bit much, but was still funny to enjoy. And after all that stalling's done, ends up being this really fun story. The highlights of the book, I will say, is the restaurant cornies. I love the restaurant cornies. I love how sloppy and weird it is, how they have their own soft serve machine thing. Like, it has such this natural, like, yeah, that is a place I would have saw when I was growing up, feel to it that it just makes you connect with it well. You know, the things the books used to do, be smaller and make it where you connect with it, you bond with it. But anyways, yeah, Corny's was the best part. The dance at the end's pretty funny too. I love seeing how just Rowley's natural loving and charisma ends up getting the girl by the end, and how the date ends up going, and Greg trying to juggle it in his mind. But Greg being Greg kind of makes it horrible. But solid number 7. Would have been higher, but it was just way too hard to judge the other ones. Let's get to the next entry. On this entry here, I kept flip-flopping and switching, trying hard to figure out which one should be 6. But finally, I put my foot down, finally decided it, and number 6 is The Getaway. Now, the thing with the book The Getaway is, and what made me fully commit to this one being number 6, was that I didn't have anything to say about it besides, this book is great because it's Diary of a Wimpy Kid and the Heffleys in a completely new environment we've never seen. Now, if you know, with many cartoons and stuff, that could be highly refreshing sometimes. There are many episodes of shows that I really like because they're in such a new, different environment, and seeing these characters in a new environment, sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes you just need to grab Greg, grab his family, put them in a completely new environment, and this time, new environment is we're in a completely different country now, going to a resort, trying to deal with how things are different there and everything, and seeing how, like usual, the Heffleys mess it up. Now, yes, this is during the era of Denver Kid where things are now more just out downright silly and cartoony, but it still keeps this really nice feel to it that still feels relatable. I mean, the opening part of them just trying to get on the plane and just trying to catch their flight, which takes up the whole first chunk of the book, I thought at first I was going to find annoying, but I actually ended up loving it. Loved it, related to it, and yeah, it could be a bitch to get a flight. And then the only bad things I have to say about the book is I hate that they gave this really interesting relationship story plot with Roderick just for it to immediately get tossed away by the end. There's one thing that will infuriate you about all Diary Kid books. They all have the same curse of if anything is close to changing or maybe they're going to spice it up, they will always just throw in the trash by the end because for some reason Jeff Kinney is obsessed with the status quo. There are many moments, and as you guys know in my worst video, I genuinely despise Wrecking Ball for the fact that it just threw away a brand new interesting idea that would have been nice to see actually. It would have rejuvenized the entire series and brought it back. And he just threw it away. Just random, cartoony, throws it away. Same thing with this. We could have had an interesting thing about Roderick being with somebody and seeing where that leads, but just throw it away. No one cares. I'm sorry, Jeff. Sometimes people want change. So for that reason, and much more, this gets the number 6 spot. Really fun to see them on vacation, but in the end of the day, that's all you're getting. You're just getting them on vacation. That's it. It's extremely refreshing and better than the long haul and the deep end that tried to do it. But that's besides it. It's a vacation book. That's the best out of the vacation books, which that's saying a lot. Okay, and on to number 5. Number 5, this one also was hard. But number 5 was Double Down. And the only reason why this gets number 5 is due to the fact that it's a really good Halloween read, as funny as that sounds. I think that's the reason why it was chosen to be orange. Even though the do-it-yourself book was originally orange, but hey, we're running out of colors. I don't know, it's just the more I looked into this book, there were so many storylines, like Greg talking about how, trying to get into certain groups and parties when he switches to the music. And let's be honest, I've met several friends when I was in high school that immediately started going nuts about joining music class or joining the music groups in school and everything just so they get invited to parties like this. So that was relatable to me. And on top of that, just him dealing with how hard those classes could be, not sticking to things you promised you would, him getting to drama with the dad. Then the amazing parts of the Halloween party. Like, no joke, almost all of the stuff they played during their Halloween party is stuff I actually played myself. Once when I was much younger, I went to a Halloween party, and every single activity game that the mom creates here for the Halloween party, I actually played myself as well when I went to my friend's Halloween party. So that was very nostalgic. That blew me away. And then the whole storyline of meeting the awkward kid who the parents are way too hard on and like obsessively make like down to the book studying. Trust me, I met a lot of assholes like that who are just way too obsessive and the parents are way too hard on them. So that was relatable as well. And yeah, and the golden thing that makes this, that would have made this higher, is the ending part. The ending has this really fun thing of Greg and Riley just friends trying to make a horror film with what they have at home, which is the highlight of the whole book. The highlight of the whole book is the ending parts of them coming together, trying to film a horror movie. Just trying to put together a horror film with what they had, make it some schlocky B-movie horror film about worms attacking, and it looks great. I love it. That part just was the most nostalgic to me because it reminded me of things I also did growing up. I'd also make some sort of film projects here and there. I deal with it. And the second best thing in this book is the parody making fun of Goosebumps. That was really funny. How here they do their own version of Goosebumps where they, by a different name, where they end up talking about, like how it was everywhere when you were a kid in school, and it was such a spooky thing for kids, and there was this weird fad going on for it, and parents were even getting annoyed by it, and a whole theory that, oh, R.L. Stein isn't real, people write these for him, and it also nailed how kids like me felt around that era, watching the Goosebumps show and reading the books, and wondering about the whole creepy names and everything. Like here, they name it MT Grave, and how there was many copycats of spin-offs that did the same thing. So this book perfectly gets filmmaking as a kid, Halloween, and just the feels of how Goosebumps felt for us growing up, and that whole thing. So for those reasons and more, that's why I guess number 5. Maybe I would have put it in higher. I'm not just going to second guess it, but we'll just stay for 5 for now. Maybe I'll boost it later. Here we are, number 4. Number 4 is Cabin Fever. Now, like I mentioned in my Wimpy Kid movie look-through, I was really, so sad to say, I was really looking forward to Cabin Fever the movie. And as you can see from this ranking here, it is one of my favorite books out of the whole series. Just the amazing opening. The opening itself is so good. The whole sleepover, him and Rowley have the playing net critters nonstop online, the whole trying to do their own Christmas school fair and trying to outdo the school and come up with all these wild creative ideas on their own things that they could do, their own activities. Dude, that whole opening was the best part to me. The part at the end is also fun too, the whole part of, them being snowed in at their house and just trying to survive until the blizzard's over, until the dad gets back. That part was also highly addictive and fun. But the opening was just so damn good. That part just felt like an extra bonus to an already amazing beginning and middle. And the whole hilarious ending, which if you guys don't know the twist ending this book does, then I won't spoil for you. It's genuinely hilarious. The ending of this book is genuinely a funny ending, and further is why it pissed me off so much that when they did the movie, I got so pissed that I ended up running away to the goddamn movie. Right, easy. Easy. My point is, they ended up grabbing an amazing book and turning it into a schlocky, heartfelt, bitch and whiny fucking Christmas special. Now here's the thing, if you like a heartwarming Christmas thing, that's fine. But that's not what the book was, and that's not what Diary of a Kid is. Diary of a Wimpy Kid is a more realistic thing about what it means going through stuff when you were a kid. It was realistic, it was toned. And I'm sorry, yeah, I've seen the reviews saying like, yeah, it gets praise for me just because of how sweet its ending is. But the problem is, when that sweetness is being directed towards this series, and you're having goddamn Greg Heffley acting so unrealistic in his sweetness that even the original first 3 live-action movies got right how he was without having to change it too much, there's a problem. So anyways, yeah, the bazaar and them running their own newspaper are the best parts of this book. The ending reels it in with a hilarious ending. It's a huge recommend from me. Alright, here we are, the final 3. Yeah. Bet you're ready, aren't you? Bet you're throbbing, you're prodding, you're all big, bumped up and throbbing full. You are ready for the top 3, ain't you? You're bumping, you're grinding, you're swollen. Let's get into it. Let's not hold back anymore with the blue damage. Here we are, number 3, The Last Straw. I also mentioned this one in my movie thing, where in my movie episode of Diary of a Kid, I said that the only thing that Dog Days did that disappointed me, Dog Days the movie, was that they just, instead of giving The Last Straw to a movie, they just smushed the last 2 together. Which, if you remember that video, I didn't mind, and I gave that was like ranked number 1 out of the movie, because it does work. I just wish that they didn't, because this is such a good book. So, when it comes to this book, why is it number 3? Well, the reason why The Last Straw gets number 3 is because, like I said, it's one of my favorites of all time. And fun fact, when I was a kid and these were like just coming out and like, the first 4 were the main ones and I just got into reading the series, this was my favorite one for a long while until later down the line. And why was this one my favorite? Well, this one is it's genuinely just like opium relatable. It's like peak relatable, overdosing even. The parts that talk about how it was going to the dentist growing up, and the parts that deal with what it was to have, having to go to a scary dentist as you get older, having to change your schedule, having, people get on your back about how, you're at that age and you got to start getting moving, you got to start being more at hard work, to the fact where you even have funny things like presents that, you get bought for you but you don't really want, as Greg is a prick about it, and dude, it brought me back to peak Diary of a Wimpy Kid, where it was Greg being Greg, going through relatable moments. The part of this book, if I had to say, was my favorite part, was the whole part when Rowley and Greg hear that whole weird story about the guy who dug a hole just so he could practice his jumping because his superpowers are leaping. And then Greg and Rowley try to do it, but in the second they try to, the snow, and because the dirt ends up being so thick that they just can't even make a dent. So they just give up, do a really crappy time capsule because they don't want their time wasted. And then Greg ends up just like not able to wait, gets desperate just to hang with some video games and a cool snack. And he ends up just digging it up, plays, goes through a video game with his nice big value size soda with a bag of gummies. Like, dude, that part always gets me. That part brings me back to being a kid. You have a friend over or something, and you guys are just relaxing. Nice big can of Arizona or a king can size of Brisk. You just are relaxing with some gummies or some Coca-Cola Cokes. Those Coca-Cola gummies. And then you just relax to a nice video game, just trying to beat it on your old PS2. That part always gets me the most. And for those reasons and more, yeah, I think that this book is third place for a reason. Would have been higher, but let's just say my nostalgia got sucked into one more than the other. Alright, now we're at number 2 right for 1. Now for number 2... Oh, man. Don't know where all that heat came from. Man, wait a minute, what is it, like summer weather? Man, must have been a pretty dog day. Okay, that was horrible. Alright, so second place is Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Dog Days. This one shouldn't be surprising to anyone why it's second place. And first off, this was actually my number 1 pick for a long while, and even when making this video, I had this at number 1. But after finally having to fully rank them, get to filming, I had to think about it and won over this one. But the reason why it is because, let me explain it to you in this way. Imagine when you were growing up. Back then, before it was all messed up and whining, and back then when we actually went outside, we hung out with friends, we went to parks, we would head to skate parks, we'd go and play some basketball in our driveway or to a school park nearby that had one, and you'd go by the corner store, you get a nice slushie to cool off in the heat, or a nice bag of candy, or you would then cool off in the night by having a nice sleepover with your pals, beating a brand new video game, trying to shoot the shit, maybe even pull out a board game with your old mini portable DVD player, playing an old TV show you had the first season of or something, or a nice movie that came out around that time. And then you think about how, yeah, I do miss those summer days. That is how this book feels. This book, to a T, feels like the joys of summer, is the best way I could put it. Even down to its color. of just being colored like the bright yellow sun during the summer. This book was such a favorite of mine for so long because this book truly, every time I look through it and I read it, it reminds me of summer when I was a kid growing up. Going outside to the parks, playing a lot of basketball, going on the swing set. Dudes, God knows how many slushies, like so many slushies to relax, maybe a nice freezy or a popsicle, and just enjoying, all my friends hanging out, cracking all sorts of jokes, not caring what jokes we made, doing whatever, and that's what this book feels like. I know I might be, getting lost in the sauce here, that is summer, and getting into my own nostalgia a bit too much, but that's just because that's what this book makes me feel. Even moments like this, people can relate to as well. Those moments when you're inside, you have the sun blaring, but you're inside just like playing a new video game, as then your mom would kick you out in order to go enjoy the sun and go hang out with your friends. So you would, and then you would go outside to the park or something. Like, dude, even down to this storyline of him going with Riley to the boardwalk and playing some arcade machines here and there, and just maybe even sometimes if you were lucky going to a theme park or something nearby and just riding the rides in the summer heat. Like, dude, those rides were cooling. Even riding your bike and shit, going to the public pool and stuff. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, it genuinely feels like Jeff Kinney fully just put his all into this one book, really relating with it. So, yeah, best part is the boardwalk and the him dealing with Rowley. Even the book even perfectly matches the him and Rowley fighting and when they weren't friends for a bit. Even that was done better here. So yeah, a bit hyperbolic here, but for all that and more, that's why it's number 2. And a part of me still wants to make it number 1, but we'll get to the reason why it's not. And here it is, the finale, number 1, and why it is number 1. Number 1 is The Ugly Truth. This one took me a long time to accept, but if you want to know the reason why this is number 1, is because this book perfectly masters what it means to get older. This entire book, from start to finish, is Greg questioning what it means to get older. The book starts with him explaining how, yeah, I noticed that as you get older, you're not allowed to enjoy the things you used to. Things that, were praised, that people thought were cute when you're smaller, now gets made fun of and treated like a joke when you're older. You start to get tossed aside more for younger brothers that are born or for other people that have just started their life. You start to get treated less and less and more like, well, how about you just get to work? Even here when he shows him and Riley just wanted to go to the farm to play around for the camera crew shoos them off like they're freaks for it just because they're older. And how as time goes on, you start to enjoy things less and less, and things change. And that's the reason why it gets it. This book beautifully masters and teaches a lesson of what it means to hit puberty and grow older. This book perfectly explains the things you will go through, the things you'll feel, and the things that will happen to you, sadly. And how, in the end, that's alright. I'm going to read this last part here to prove my point about why it's so great. I guess I'm not in a big rush to grow up right now. And after Gammy showing me what's in store on the next few years, I think I'm going to take her advice and hang as long as I can. I don't feel like growing older. I just want to be myself while I still can, because many things can change. And that right there is the reason why this is the number 1 best book. It could have been the other one due to nostalgia. It could have been the others due to fun. But this one was number 1 due to the fact that it was the most personal and most beautifully written out of all of them. And that's saying a lot for Jeff Kinney. And you know what that means? Oh yeah, with that, we have finished the Last Wimpy Kid retrospective.
Hey everybody, sorry it's just big moment at being here. We are finally toward the end of the Last Wimpy Kid retrospective. And I just wanted to say a few words before it was over. Just because we now say goodbye to a beloved book series, a series that I grew up with so much, that was such a big deal to me. This doesn't mean it's the end. Yes, I know there might not be any more Last Wimpy Kid videos on this channel from now on, or on this series, but you never know. Maybe from time itself, we'll have people that comment all sorts of things with Last Wimpy Kid they wish for me to talk about, or maybe we'll get some new books that manage to be good enough to make me redo my top 7 list, to make them more grander. But for now, even though the movies, as we saw, may be a flop, it does not mean the books have to be either. So let's celebrate. Let's hold up our drinks and celebrate in knowing the fact that even though the movies may be shit, there will always be the book series. And I know that with the newest entry of the book series, we will proceed to get greater and greater books that go beyond our wildest dreams. You know it, I know it, and we can all celebrate in knowing that the books will always be. Boy, I was fucking wrong. Shit. I guess it's all downhill from here.